Hey guys, today we're going to take a look at the right way to change the transmission oil in a Beta 390. This technique applies to all the newer model Betas, all the 4-strokes that is, and there's a lot of confusion out there around exactly the right way to refill the transmission oil. Beta's included a check plug on it. We'll get into the details as we dive through this video, but that check plug is actually fairly useless. I really have no idea why they included it on there. Doing it the wrong way, putting too little oil in this bike, can cause you a ton of problems. You'll burn clutches. I've gone through about 4 of them so far, unfortunately. I've actually reached out to the Beta engineering team and got confirmation on the right way to do it. I think it's really unfortunate that there's some mistranslations, I think, in the manual that make it a little bit confusing exactly how to go through this process. So we'll show you step by step exactly what to do, and we hope this is really helpful, help clear up some of the confusion that's out there around this process. Let's dive in. I'll actually be using the MOTUL Trans Oil Expert. It's a 10W40. It's an ester oil. I've had really good luck with it in this bike. In some other bikes that I've run, I've used a Rotella T5 and some off-the-shelf stuff, third-party whatever, and in this bike, I tried the same thing. I tried the Rotella T5 in particular, and I had a lot of issues with it. In some of the other bikes that I've ridden, it substituted in really nicely and actually cleaned up the transmission quite a bit. When I ran the Rotella in the Beta, I had problems with shifting, problems finding neutral, things like that, missed shifts, and took it out right away. Really a bad experience. So I stick with the MOTUL, and I would highly recommend that product as well. It's actually it's factory recommended, works really great in these bikes. The first thing that you want to do is actually remove the skid plate. That way you don't have oil running all over the system when you start to drain it. Once you've got the skid plate out of the way, you can go ahead and remove the drain plugs. Now, it's important to note that these Betas have 2 oil compartments. The front compartment is for the engine oil, the back compartment is for the transmission oil. There's actually 2 drain plugs, and the oil has 2 different colors so you can tell the difference and tell if they're cross-contaminating. The front drain plug is to drain the engine oil. We're gonna go ahead and leave that alone this time. The rear drain plug is the one that drains the transmission oil out. That's the non-red, the regular colored oil. You'll want to check the magnetic plug on the drain plug bolt, clean that off. That's all the shavings from the gears and the clutch plates, etc., that are going through the system, and that plug's pulling them all out. Once the oil's done draining, it's a good idea to rock the bike back and forth as just about as far as you can lean it in both directions. Try to get the last little bit of oil out. It helps if you've warmed the bike up ahead of time, because then the oil will flow a little faster. Now that we've got all the oil drained out, we can go ahead and put the drain plug back in, snug it up, and we'll move on to filling the oil. Really important not to over torque the bolt. The torque on it's pretty low. I've got a good feel for it by hand. If you're not super comfortable with it, check the torque in the manual and do it the right way. So now we're ready to fill the oil back into the transmission. Here's where things get a little bit tricky. Per the Beta manual, it says to pour 750 milliliters of oil into this side of the transmission fill and call it a day. However, there's a check procedure that says remove this check plug, and if oil weeps out of that hole, then you know that there's oil in the bike and that it's full. Those two are in complete conflict with each other, because if you fill oil only to this level, you've only got about 400 milliliters of oil in there. That's about half of what's supposed to be run in these transmissions. There is no other check mechanism. There's no dipstick on the fill cap. There's really no way to know if it's full or not. There's no check process other than this, which again checks 400 milliliters. So the correct process is to drain out as much as you can get and to simply pour the full 750 milliliters of oil back in. Now, it's really impossible to get these too full because, first of all, there's no pressure pump for it to run through that you can strain, and if you do get it too full, it'll simply weep out this ventilation tube up here, especially if they tip the bike over or something like that. So never mind the check plug, I've completely stopped using it. Just pour in the 750 milliliters, you're done, off to ride. Selling scrap and buying gold, but you only do what you've been told. It's like the walls are closing in. We're down there at about 200, so that's about 800 milliliters. That's where I like it, just a little over. Again, I can't see any harm in putting just a little bit too much in there. There's nowhere for it to go, but just to weep out, it's not going to cause any problems. better overfill than underfill. Trust me, I've made that mistake a bunch, gone through a lot of clutches doing this the wrong way. And that's basically it. You close it off, and that's it. In the end, a really simple procedure. No need to check anything. The check is totally irrelevant to whether or not it's actually full of oil in this case. And you're done. We can go ahead and put the skid plate back on, and that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you find this information useful. There's not a lot of videos out there that really talk about how to properly check the transmission oil level in these betas and the 4-strokes, and it's super critical. Again, I've gone through several clutches doing this the wrong way. I think the manual is poorly written, and there's a lot of misinformation floating out there on the forums, and even some of the instructional videos from some of the beta dealers, unfortunately. So if you're interested in seeing my story of how I got to this point and why I'm so sure about how to do this right, check out our video on the Recluse clutch review and the beta clutch saga. Please make sure you dispose of your old motor oil properly. Take it to a recycling center. We want to be environmentally conscious around here at Wannabes. And if you like these videos, if you appreciate the information we're putting out, we'd really appreciate a like and subscribe in return. We look forward to seeing you next time. If you've got ideas for technical things that you'd like us to explore, or some techniques you'd like us to do some how-tos on, please leave them in the comments, and we'd be happy to consider. Thanks. See you next time.